The Five Nights at Freddy's franchise now has a total of 11 different games that create a deep and complex story. And most recently, Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit was released a few weeks ago, and although it's only been released for a short period of time, this game holds so much depth, lore, and mysteries, and we specifically see a lot of lore in all of the cut content. The cut content from Into the Pit can help us answer some of the biggest mysteries from the entire franchise, and I actually believe that this cut content solves one of FNAF's most infamous characters, Old Man Consequences. In one of the cut minigames, we finally learn more about Old Man Consequences and his purpose, so in this video I'm going to go over how the cut content from FNAF Into the Pit finally solved Old Man Consequences. But first, let's go over the quick history of this character. Old Man Consequences first made his appearance in FNAF World as a minor character. He was featured in a secret ending where the player would reach the end of the map and encounter this character fishing alone. He only has 2 pieces of dialogue, as all he says is, "I'm sorry to say that you have gone too deep into the code." And he also says, "There's no way back out, my name is Old Man Consequences. Come have a seat and let's fish for a while. You have nowhere else to go." Old Man Consequences then made his next appearance in FNAF Ultimate Custom Night. To get that Easter egg, this player must set all animatronics to a rating of 0 and only keep Old Man Consequences at 1. Then when you're in the game and when you press a button to catch the fish, you will be taken to the Easter egg. Here you get the same exact screen as the one from FNAF World, but this time Old Man Consequences has very cryptic and confusing dialogue. He first says, "Come and sit with me a while." He then says, "Leave the demon to his demons, rest your own soul, there's nothing else." After this, the player then walks into the lake, drowning themselves, and this is where the Easter egg ends. And finally, in FNAF Up 1 and 2, we see Old Man Consequences return in the form of the Old King. He's the one who trades the player the Vanny mask for this Glitch Trap plush. And it's this plushie that Vanny destroys, signifying that she frees herself from the virus's control and is no longer under Glitch Trap's influence. But without Old Man Consequences' help, Vanny wouldn't have been able to free herself, and it feels like his purpose is to help those who are being tortured by Willie Mafton like Cassidy. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, most recently we just saw Old Man Consequences in the newest game to the installment, Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit. When playing the Balloon Boy minigame where you play as Balloon Boy gathering different party hats, if you pushed against the left side of the third to last platform, you would phase into a secret area of the minigame. Here you witness the missing children incident as you see empty tables and chairs, then you see 5 balloons as you pop them, signifying the 5 children of the missing children incident. Then when you reach the end, you see Willie Mafton as Purple Guy who drops a 6th party hat, but you need to jump in time to collect it. But originally, there's going to be a 20% chance that you would instead encounter Old Man Consequences, who would tell you the following lines. "You fell down the rabbit hole, didn't you? It's not your fault, you didn't know. The others didn't know either. You're a little different from them, you know? You're not trapped yet. Find solace in knowing such. Look to the sky or fall into the pit. The choice is yours." Although it's debated if cut content is canon or if it should be used to solve theories, in this context I think it's necessary as this small cutscene tells us so much about this character. So let's start to go over why this minigame solves the character of Old Man Consequences. With the 3 main quotes featured in this minigame, we also learn 3 new things or ideas revolving around this complex character. The first set of quotes focus on how the player got there and how he compares to other souls who have found him. With the use of Rabbit Hole, it feels like in order to reach Old Man Consequences, the player must go through extensive layers. Extensive layers of trauma and suffering. We know this is true as in FNAF World, the player goes through different layers of code until they reach the very end where they find Old Man Consequences, and I think these layers of code represent suffering and trauma. And like he points out, the player in FNAF World didn't mean to fall into the rabbit hole either. It's not clear where you are going as you pass the different layers. Even when you're right at the end, you don't know where you are until you find Old Man Consequences himself. Like the player from Into the Pit, these are 2 souls accidentally finding Old Man Consequences by going through different layers of pain and death. In FNAF Into the Pit, they directly confirm this as the player goes through the missing children incident shown by the 5 balloons being popped. This minigame is directly showing us how a soul can reach Old Man Consequences and how it's not always intentional, but I'll get back to when it is intentional later in the video. This minigame is also showing us that every soul that reaches Old Man Consequences is connected in a way. That's why he even mentioned the other souls that have reached him, as again they're all connected. And when looking at the next set of quotes, they just prove this idea further. We also learn that the player is different from the other souls. He's not trapped yet and you should find peace in that. Now this is where I think Old Man Consequences mentioned another soul that we have seen in the franchise, Cassidy. Cassidy was the soul featured in FNAF Ultimate Custom Night, and I think this is the soul he's referring to as trapped. She is trapped in purgatory, that is an endless cycle where she tortures the man who murdered her, William Afton. She makes him face 50 of his creations for eternity, and again she's trapped in this cycle. So when Old Man Consequences is referring to the other soul that found him by accident, he's referring to the soul we play as in FNAF World, but when he refers to the soul that is trapped, he's referring to Cassidy. And by mentioning Cassidy, he's again connecting all souls that have found him, and it's proving that time doesn't have a role with Old Man Consequences. FNAF Into the Pit takes place in 1985, which would have been decades before Cassidy trapped Willie Mafton in Purgatory, but Old Man Consequences still mentions Cassidy, proving that time doesn't matter when reaching him. What matters is if you decide to stay in this rabbit hole, or if you even have the choice in leaving. In the same set of quotes, he tells the player to find solace in knowing he has a choice. Solace is defined as finding peace in distraught or difficult situations, so he wants the player to find peace even when he's traveled through layers of darkness and is essentially trapped. But this brings me to my next and last point, which is the idea of having a choice of continuing to be trapped or a choice of being free. With the past two souls who have visited Old Man Consequences, the first soul in FNAF World did not have a choice of being free. Old Man Consequences directly tells them that they are trapped and that there's nowhere else to go. Although they reached this area by accident, it's clear that they still don't have a choice in leaving and that they are trapped. But with the second soul, Cassidy, she does have a choice to be free, as Old Man Consequences tells her to leave the demon to his demons, which is Willie Mafton, and to rest your own soul. Now, although it isn't confirmed if Golden Freddy decides to rest, I think the ultimate custom night ending tells us that her soul still hasn't been put to rest. We see Golden Freddy twitching uncontrollably, and we even see a dim light in her eyes, meaning she is still possessing this animatronic, and again her soul isn't resting. She is choosing to continue to torture Willie Mafton instead of being set free, so although she has a choice, she is still trapped. But with the soul we see in FNAF Into the Pit, we also learn that they have a choice. With the last set of quotes from Old Man Consequences, they read, "Look to the sky or fall into the pit. The choice is yours." Unlike the soul from FNAF World, although the soul found this lake accidentally, they still have a choice in leaving or being free. And this choice is actually up to the player, with the first choice being falling into the pit. Old Man Consequences has the 6th and secret party hat to be collected, and if you try to collect the hat but miss, you will fall into the pit and the minigame will end. Which also means that you remain trapped, but if you grab the hat successfully and go back to the base minigame, you have the option of completing it normally but with the 6th hat. And when doing so, you will be awarded with the win screen, and as the player, you and their soul are now free. But finally, the last thing I want to point out is the very last piece of dialogue. It reads, "The choice is yours." Now, although this might seem like a very vague statement, it's actually something very similar to what we've heard another character from the franchise say as well. A character that is believed to actually be the same as Old Man Consequences, Henry Emily. In FNAF 6 and in the salvaging segment of the game, Henry Emily says this,
"And forfeit payment. Please make your choice now. You have chosen to proceed with the maintenance checklist."
Although they aren't the exact same piece of dialogue, they're still very similar, and this might be another way of connecting these two characters. And in general, the way these two characters speak are very similar, and again, it feels like this is on purpose to connect these two characters. So the FNAF Into the Pit cup minigame that features Old Man Consequences tells us that souls can find him accidentally, they can become trapped in the lake with him, and finally, the souls will sometimes have a choice in leaving. In this cup minigame, I also confirm that Old Man Consequences is Henry Emily, but remember, this is just a theory. I hope you guys enjoyed this video where I go over one of the cut minigames from FNAF Into the Pit and how it possibly solves Old Man Consequences. So what do you guys think? Does this minigame solve Old Man Consequences, and most importantly, who is he? So make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you guys so much for watching.